Харе Кришна, 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 Харе Харе. Мои поклоны всем. Сегодня у нас русскоязычная парикрама, насколько я понимаю, да, или англоязычная?
Махарадж,
Санкаршан.
сегодня англоязычная. Вот у нас гости сегодня, иностранные из разных стран, пришли на
Окей.
наш Бедалайф фестиваль. Так что Гопа Кишор будет вас переводить, и мы готовы начинать.
Беда лайф, от слова беда лайф. Жизнь полная бед. Окей. Харе Кришна. So I'm very happy to see everyone here tonight at this auspicious time of Shri Навадвип Дхам Парикрама. So we spoke in different languages and different way we express our appreciation to our divine gurus. Therefore, we're starting from praising them. Om Agyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So it is just by grace of extraordinary force you can see things. So in material world, we have telescope or microscope, something that extend our senses into mundane field, and then we can experience things that beyond our common vision. So some people say, well, eagles have a particular sharp vision, the dogs have particular smell, but it's all good. If eyes of eagle better than eyes of a human, nose of dog better than nose of human, then why God giving such imperfect senses to human? Why is that dog or bird have better position in evolution? The answer is given in Vedas, Dharmena Hinu Pashumi Samana. Because it is what has been given to us is enough to realize God. However, an evolutionary chain, maybe dog can run faster and an eagle can fly, people can fly. But what dog or human can barely do, few eagles receive liberation, few dogs receive liberation, but all of it happened by grace of Vaishnavas. So the dogs, such as Shivananda Sain dog, were taken by Shivananda Sain to Jagannath Parikrama. That dog actually was not exactly Shivananda Sain dog. He joined during Parikrama to Jagannath Puri, and Shivananda Sain was so merciful and so kind. Seeing this dog leading with devotees, he actually double paid to take him across the river. Because when devotees came to the river and the boatman had a particular charge, but you know, boatman has big ego. Oh, I don't take dogs across. I don't, you know, I'm so divine. Like, I don't put dogs in my boat. But you know, in material world, all this so-called dignity and you know, uncontamination, it's just been very simple. Then Shivananda said, how much? What if I pay for dog like for human? Oh, I'm not going to do it. What about 2 human? Oh, I'm not. What about 3 human, 5 human? Yeah, sure. Oh, sir, please, at your service. So the currency of this world is very simply understood as energy, external energy. But what is that currency by which you can achieve mercy of Shivananda Sain? How much dog paid to Shivananda Sain? He paid nothing. Not only he paid nothing, when the dog came to, you know, Jagannath Puri, he disappeared, because there, when I was staying in Jagannath Puri recently, there were many dogs barking all night. And there was dogs of one household chasing out dogs of another household. So dogs are like, they're like police. They divide the whole town and village, and they're just barking like, get out of here, don't come here, don't come here. So obviously dog probably was chased by some local dogs and disappeared. And then people by joke told Mahaprabhu, oh yeah, Shivananda, he's so merciful. He's even taken dog with him to see you. But the problem is, like, dog has no brain. He runs away. He couldn't come with us. Then Mahaprabhu said, oh, nice. Shivananda is unique. Oh, you're talking about dog? And then suddenly dog appeared. And then Mahaprabhu said, you're talking about this dog? Is that the same dog? And everybody looked, yeah, look like the same. Maybe not, we don't know. I mean, And then Mahaprabhu throw a piece of prasadam to that dog, and that dog is, you know, biting, jumping and biting that piece of prasadam and eating a piece of coconut. And then devotees have seen that ecstatic tears of love of God coming out of eyes of dog, and dog hair stood up, and dog start dancing and chanting Hare Krishna, and suddenly left his body, and they see golden living entity come out of dog body and descend, skyrocket to spiritual world. That was the power of Shivananda Sain, who delivered the dog. And how much dog pay him? Nothing. He paid for the dog to come with them to see Mahaprabhu. Dog didn't understand where they're going, what has been expected in front of him. But by the great fortune of dog that he likes the devotees, and he's with his tail, you know, he likes smell devotees, he likes devotees coming and singing, and the dog coming with them, very important. So just being not fully conscious, joining the group of devotees, dog received liberation. So what to speak about us? Just like I've said, human have certain imperfect senses, and it appeared to be that you need the microscope, you need the telescope, you need, you know, a computer, you need a chip, you have to have transhuman to be able to download things right out of your brain. But that's not what makes perfect human being perfect. Actually, Srila Govinda Maharaj used to say, to human is arrow, because no one is perfect. And he said, and some of our friends are real amazing humans. When he said the humans, means the humans. So to human is error. In other words, Srila Govinda Maharaj said, most humans feel fools, and some of our friends like real idiots. But he was always speaking in a very nice, charming way. So that was Govinda Maharaj's unique quality. He will call somebody fool and he would love it, because he would not call you human. He would say, oh, he's a real human. Means to be human is to error. So then the question comes, how do you transmit from the human form of life to a devotee form of life and the spiritual being form of life? How would you do that? Well, one of the way we're doing right now, all together, we're joining Навадвип Дхам Парикрама, and we're hearing about the glories of Mahaprabhu and his devotees. And just hearing of someone like Shivananda Sain, who we don't even understand who is him, we can realize, yes, if we really meet a great devotee like Prabhupada, Guru Maharaj, Gurudev, Shivananda, any real Mahaprabhu devotee, then we can be saved. Then one story, when Shivananda Sain was walking on Parikrama, he was in charge of like a couple hundred of Mahabhagavats. And all of these devotees were divine, including Nityananda Prabhu and all his friends. And you can imagine Nityananda Prabhu, sometimes he's walking naked, sometimes he's walking in a strange dress, sometimes he's singing crazy songs. And all Dvadasha Gopals, all his friends, Minaketanaram has whip, he's whipping people and giving Krishna Prem. Another guy has a flute, like bamboo flute, 5 meters, bamboo pole, he played on that 5-meter crazy flute. And all of them were like divine mystics and crazy because they would do things. I mean, just think of this. Abhiram Thakur could weep with his whip John Maigal, and by weeping people, he would inject Krishna Prem in them. Just like the doctor give you injection, sometimes the doctor take the needle and does it like that, because if you just little pain, the kitten Ram starts whipping him with his whip, and then his wife said, please don't kill him, he cannot bear so much Krishna Prem, don't give him more. Like, I would be really, if somebody would whip my ass in this particular way, but I know I'm not qualified, I'm fallen soul, but just hearing about this is amazing. So think of this, all these Mahabhagavats, they would go from Navadvip to Puri, and from Puri to Navadvip, coming back to Navadvip, see Mahaprabhu, have Jagannath Ratha Yatra, have crazy, incredible pastimes, coming back and doing more pastimes as ever. And Shivananda Sain was in charge, and he was a householder. So that means he has to pay for everybody. Because that time it was many tolls, and Orissa and Bengal were in fight. So it was not safe just to go alone, and you have to pay. And sometimes they would stop. Like there was one story where, they want to stop Mahaprabhu. And then they would come and see Mahaprabhu. And as they would see Mahaprabhu, they would cry and let him go. But they're not stupid. But they would say, well, everybody else has to pay. Because everybody else, oh, we're with him. Okay, maybe few, but what about this, like a couple hundred people? So Shivananda Sain had Sankarshan, this is Advaita, he's Mahavishnu and Shiva, this is Shiva Thakur, he's Narada Muni. Like, are you trying to charge Narada Muni, or are you trying to charge Sadashiva a couple of shekels? So he had to preach to people that he's an agent of extraordinary divine beings. And sometimes, it would be very difficult to convince some Muslim guy who's running, a boat that he just let go 200 mind-blowing divine spiritual personalities. But believe it or not, in most cases, they would be coming for free. Not only coming for free, as they come, they would liberate people on the way. So Govinda Maharaj used to love to drive to Puri on his car. Guru Maharaj allowed Govinda Maharaj to buy like a car, like Ambassador. It's little like Russian old Moskvich, like the old one. So Govinda Maharaj would ride 2 days to Puri. And everybody would say, Govinda Maharaj, why you're not taking overnight express train? It's like 8 hours and you're in Puri. You have nice sleep and you're like, you're enjoying the Puri. But Govinda Maharaj said, no, that's not the deal. I am riding this car because I want to see the road by which Mahaprabhu, Shivananda Sain, all this Mahabhagavata Vaishnava has been traveling to Puri. I want to see every stop. Rimuna, I want to see all these amazing places on the way, because they have all, remember, feet of, this divine Vaishnavas. So think of this. We're talking about Навадвип Дхам Парикрама, but this is the place where Mahaprabhu's feet were climbing. He was taking baths in divine Ganga and other rivers. He would sit under trees and embrace trees. So it's all Chinmoy, it's transcendental. Anything get in connection with the spiritual beings like Mahaprabhu must be spiritual. It's full transcendental, but for common humans who have no faith, that we're like blind. We can't see it, but we can hear it. That's the good news. So we cannot see it, or we can see something, but the image is not so important. The sound is more important. Why is that more important, sound? Because our eyes always delude us, but our heart is always belief. So to see the Holy Dham by eyes of faith and belief. And that was a problem not only with us. There's a story of great yogi Markandeya Rishi, and when you read the Bhagavatam, he's extraordinary follower of Krishna of Vedic culture. It says Markandeya were brahmachari. He had always mad dreadlocks. He had like always his body was covered by vibhuti, the ashes of the sacrificial fire, and he would only wear skin or tree skin or animal skin as his kaupian, as a dress of ascetic. And he would stay wintertime at ice rivers and perform, stay on one leg and chant Vedic mantras. And during the summer, he would, make a fire circle. That's what they do in mystic yoga, the purification with cow dung. And you stay on the sun and the fire. So he would purify himself by wind, fire, water, and always performing mystic yoga, always meditating on his guru, and going on like this. And when you go to Himalayas, there'll be so many places established by Markandeya Rishi. In Uttarkashi, there'll be like great Shivalingam established by Markandeya Rishi. In Himalayas, you'll find places connect with Markandeya Rishi. Oh, Markandeya done this. Markandeya opened this temple. Markandeya blessed this place. Markandeya blessed this. So finally, through his Siddha sadhana, he achieved immortality. Not complete immortality, but enough to live in the pralaya stage. So it is says that at a certain stage of pralaya, destruction, Vishnu take a form of baby and swimming and a leaf of a banyan tree in ocean. So Markandeya Rishi got blessing from Brahma that he would live as long as creation and survive destruction, survive time of life of universe. Partial destruction, not full destruction, of course. So at that moment, Markandeya Rishi were drowned in ocean because 100 years sun burning everything, 100 years wind splashing everything which has been burned, and then water comes out of ice that melt and become a blood cloud. It's covering the sun, and then rain, and the whole world become ocean because the North Pole and South Pole hold all the water. So when that water melt, it's destruction. So Markandeya is like swimming like this in waves, hundreds of years. And he think, what am I done? Why am I trying to achieve immortality? Is immortality alone can provide me happiness and fulfillment? No. And he was so much sorry that he asked this blessing to become immortal. He didn't ask true proper blessing, but he was praying to Supreme Lord. So at one story, it says that finally he saw a little boy floating on a banyan leaf, and that little boy was sucking his own toes. It was Krishna. And he's like, did pranayam, Krishna sucked Markandeya like a little insect in his nose, and Markandeya traveled through the whole creation and then suck out. That one story. But the story that Bhaktivinoda Thakur emphasized in Навадвип Дхам is the story where Markandeya were so tired and so hopeless that finally he discovered himself on some kind of earth land. And he knew, according to scriptures, there should not be earth, it should be only water. But he opened eyes and he saw himself in a beautiful land. And this land was so sweet, so soft and beautiful. Not only that, he felt that somebody licking his body. And then he opened eyes and see it was a cow licking him with his tongue. And that tongue was so soft and so nice. It was just like almost trying to wake him up. And then he's like, saw that celestial cow, and he understood that's not a common cow. And the cow starts speaking to him. And the cow said very kindly, oh, my friend, welcome to Navadvip. Like, what? Welcome to this divine land of Mahaprabhu. What are you talking about? You know, I was just drowned in the material ocean for hundreds of years, and you're now telling me there's some land here? She said, yes, but this land is never destroyed. It's not part of material reality. It's a spiritual reality. And she gave him the milk. So as Markandeya get the cow milk, which is pure Krishna prema, the pure love of Surabhi cow, in this milk fulfilled him so much because he was so thirsty, so, you know, I mean, he even forgot what the real feelings are, because spiritual feelings, when they hit your heart, they will untie your heart. So then Markandeya said, I cannot believe I'm feeling so much fulfillment. Who are you? Tell me what this is land. And, you know, the Surabhi cow said, well, actually, you are in the land of Mahaprabhu. This is a very divine land. And the qualification of entering this land is your surrender and desire to satisfy Supreme Lord. This is the land of mercy. See, normally Markandeya would go to scriptures and read and hear from some sages, okay, if you stand on one leg and you put one feet like this for that many hundreds of years, and you do this, and you do this yoga, you do this prayoga, you do this parishcharana, you take this mantra, you get this result or that result. But that was not what Cow told him. She said, no, like, you can't do anything like this here. There's no way you'll be qualified by just, sitting in lotus posture or hold your breath or chanting tantric mantras. The only qualification in this land is to surrender and accept. So, which you think, well, it's so easy, but actually it is not, because the ego. So if our false ego, which is drowning us down, can be given up out of necessity of surrender, yes, surrender is possible. So Markandeya was helpless, and that turned him to accept this idea that he has to surrender. And here, after so many millions of years of mystic yoga, finally, by true fortune of Surabhi Cow, he's achieved Gaura Prema and he's got darshan of Gauranga. But he's in the Bhagavad. So if somebody think, hey, I'll just do this spiritual practice or that spiritual practice, remember, great yogis and great sages who are entered to this high stages of consciousness and described in holy scriptures, they've done this for many, many lives. Maharaj Bharata, Maharaj Rishabdev, Maharaj Prithu, this sage, that sage. And if you think, you can copy that, good luck. It's not possible. So as Guru Maharaj said, you're not in the same door. You don't have to stay in the door of justice. You have to knock on the door of mercy. There's line of mercy and there's line of justice. And believe it or not, the line of justice is very long. However, a line of mercy is a shortcut. Then somebody would say, well, why we're not in line of mercy? There's something wrong. Yes, there's a lot of things wrong with us. There's nothing wrong with line of mercy. There's so much wrong with our ego and our self-perception and our false identity that Svarupena Vivastite, once that ego will be destroyed, the new golden self will appear through the media of self-sacrifice and surrender to Guru, Krishna, and Vaishnava, which we all trying, infinitely trying, and something stopping us internally. And then we try again. And then again, we see that our ego is not being destroyed. And then we say, well, after so many, years of spiritual practice, I try myself, I try my best. Why is that I'm not successful? And the answer is this. As Guru Maharaj said, yes, he said, the bee can leak the can, the transparent jar of honey. But if you're not open that jar of honey, it's only look like honey. You cannot access, you have to open it. So in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's a great story about treasure. And fathers died, and the man knew his father had a huge treasure and hidden treasure. So he thought, how can I find the treasure? My father has big land. He probably could put in this corner and that corner. So many places my father could hide, and he died, didn't expose to me, but he told me, I have some treasure, you'll find it. I'll tell you later. So somebody said, well, you bring an expert astrologer. And that expert astrologer can define through stars and certain auspicious, elements where the treasure is. And by his fortune, he found that astrologer. And that was a very experienced person. And he came his home and he said, yes, I feel also there's treasure here. In fact, it's not hidden anywhere. It's not that far away as you think. Right in your home, underground of your home. The control idea of merging your inner self into light, divine life will also destroy you. If you approach yourself from east, there'll be another problem of karma kanda. But if you approach yourself from west, the bhakti, that is the way to dig the treasure. So we all have tendency to, mystical practices, and we like the activities bring us, make us adjust it. None of this will work for you if you don't go from the proper side. So when we do Навадвип Дхам Парикрама, we travel from place to place. And I told you about Surabi Kunja and Godroom, which normally we achieve by boat. And the reason we achieve by boat, because the place called Swarupganj, and there's Bhaktivinoda Thakur house. But before we enter the Bhaktivinoda Thakur house, which is not so far away from the bank river of Saraswati or Jalangi, we enter to that very space called Surabi Kunja, and used to be a beautiful, beautiful place. And now, of course, Indian guys build huge temple, huge ashram. So the Kunja, which means beautiful tree and beautiful space, and cow used to live there. Now cows still stay there, but it's a huge temple. Like what happens right now in Навадвип Dham, you used to have a nice piece of nature. And once some Gaudiya Math take over, they build the temple, they build the ashram, they build ashrams, they build this, they build that. So now we have like a temple, ashram, which is nice. And of course, devotees comes there, and the person that runs this ashram named Avadhut Maharadj, actually. He's a little younger than me. He's a nice Bengali fella. I don't know whose disciple, maybe Madhav Maharaj and Bon Maharaj, whatever. There are many gurus in Bengal. And, he's a nice guy. He's always like us. He also liked me. He's like, oh, Avadhut Maharaj, come to see Avadhut Maharaj. And so there at that kunja we stay, and we do some songs. And we prepare ourselves to enter to divine place of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Suvanda Sukhananda Kunj. Very beautiful, very peaceful place. And not that many people there. Just a few Gaudiya Vaishnavas there. They taking care of Bhaktivinoda Thakur house. And, Saraswati Thakur had a brother named Lalit Prasad. And Lalit Prasad was against Saraswati Thakur. He was preaching Ragamarga. He was preaching many apasidantic things because he thought, I'm a son of a big sage. My brother is like trying to get a bunch of neophytes, a bunch of, Germans, Russians, and Americans. And I'm like a deep guy, like my father. I really, I can talk about Ragamarga and all this extraordinary transformations, which is very seductive from point of, speaking from a couch, but not very practical when it comes to real spiritual life. But one time, I think maybe Saraswati Thakur was very, very unhappy because Lalit Prasad took over the house of Bhaktivinoda. And you cannot be always friend with your brother, but when you're enemy with your own brother, it's even worse. But even worse when your own brother, who not proper follower of your father ideas, and your Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur always thought of Bhaktivinoda as his guru, actually, not father. Even he wrote the poetry to his brother, Radha Badha Baba. Radha Badha Baba. Who's Radharani? You call her father. Like, how can you call father Radharani? Bhaktivinoda is divine expansion of Radharani. He is connect with Gadadhar Pandit. He's one of the spiritual mandri of the spiritual world. And you call that person Baba, who give you the birth, father, then you are existing on bodily conception. So the news came to Keshav Maharaj, I think, and Keshav Maharaj was a very clever guy. He thought, okay, I cannot kick son Bhaktivinoda Thakur from the house, but also I cannot not satisfy my guru Saraswati Thakur. I have to clean this house. How do I do it? He was very clever man. So he brought a couple group of gundas, his friends, because he was kind of he was very like hardcore guy. He would sometimes be on a horse with rifle. So he was like one of the kind of kshatriya nature of Saraswati Thakur disciples. So he came to local gundas, local dacoits, and told them, look, guys, I have some business for you. I'll pay you a little bit, but you have to help me. So what he did is, one group of dacoit came to house of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and they start fighting with another group of dacoits, screaming, because in Bengal, they shout and scream. So one group of start telling, we came to here to kill Lalit Prasad. Why are you coming here? The other dacoits start screaming, no, we want to kill him first because we got paid. So they were start shouting, who's going to enter first, and he's going to kill Lalit Prasad first. So of course, Lalit Prasad heard that, and he thought, well, there's this dacoit fighting, who's going to kill me first? Let me run. So he runs away. Then when Keshav Maharaj saw Lalit Prasad running, he told brahmacharis, okay, Gurudev's house is clean. So he came to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and said, your house is clean, you can enter. And Saraswati Thakur said, well, I will not enter my father's house, but what I like to do is like is to take care and worship them, the deities, and take care. And how did you clean that house? And Keshav Maharaj said, I don't have to explain you how I did it, but it's available. And he said, I hope my brother did not get hurt. That Lalit Prasad had been staying in Kolkata and was under control of Gaudiya Vaishnavas, not the Sahaja group. And near that house, many nice Vaishnavas used to live, and some of them used to be disciples of Srila Bhaktivinoda and sit under tree, and he would chant, or he would go to Jalangi, take bath, and very, very beautiful. And sometimes a few great souls would come and see him, some yogis, some sadhus, some babas. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur had long discussion. He really liked religious discussions. So he would sit down under banyan tree and would discuss with people. And there's also little uska kaleika in Russians, like very small railway. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, because he had the power, he brought this railway from Krishnanagar or whatever station to Gudrum, because he wants people to use the railway to come and see the Holy Dham. And he wrote many books there. He wrote Jaiva Dharma, Chaitanya Shikshamrita, so many wonderful books, and researched his scriptures. So at the sunset would be around 8 o'clock. He would go sleep, wake up at about 2 o'clock in the morning. And from 2 o'clock in the morning till about 6 or 7, he would do his chanting and write the books. And then take a little breakfast and take some prasadam and go do his police department work, or sometimes he would be a judge in the court, and very quickly he would manage the whole thing, make decisions, and come back home at about 3 to 4 o'clock, finish his duties within a few hours, and continue to his spiritual sadhana, his prasadam, and then again wake up very early in the morning and 2 o'clock in the morning. So normally his children would sleep, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur had writings and divine vision. And one time he wrote one article about one devotee, but actually that devotee was his son, one of his sons. And that one of his sons was very nice boy, but at the age of 30, between 30 and 40, he became very depressed. And as he became very depressed, he started losing his vitality, ability to communicate, and he's become very, very ill. And suddenly, he was dying. And all the members of Bhaktivinoda Thakur family, including Bhaktivinoda Thakur, get around him and they start chanting kirtan. And at the very moment just before he died, he raised his hand and started speaking. And he said interesting thing. He said, in previous life, I was one of the Acharya of South India, like one of the Acharya preacher, Vaishnava Acharya of South India. And I offend Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his devotees. In this life, I born in a house. I was a great Vaishnava, but in this life, to pay for that offense, I was born as a son of devotee of Mahaprabhu, and I'm fully satisfying living this world, but I have to bury my reactions. And through your chant, actually, I got liberated. So that's what he said and died. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur wouldn't want to share this with everybody else. Here in his Sajjan Toshani, he published this. Sajjan Toshani, Sajjanananda, those who's looking for fulfillment in Krishna consciousness, they were the audience of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So he was a publisher of many articles and his own magazine, but Amrita Patrika Bazar was a big newspaper at that time. An editor of Amrita Patrika Bazar called Bhaktivinoda Thakur as 7 Goswami. There's 6 Goswamis, Rup Sanatan, Bhakta Raghunath, etc. And Mr. Ghosh, he said, well, this Bhaktivinoda, and he was also appreciator of Vaishnavas. We don't know how much he was practicing Vaishnavism, but he was that time incredible intellectual with high education. He was editor of newspaper, and he was happily publishing religious articles. See, but because when we talk about our media, it's full of shit. Normally, it's like there's nothing but bullshit. In Indian media at those days, there would be a lot of religious articles, such and such Swami, and there would be actually Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur also published many articles. And there would be many questions from subscribers about, why do we have to worship Tulsi or something like that? And there would be like article of one Swami, and then sometimes there would be Swami's debate in the newspaper. So think of this, India, Calcutta, and you like common man smoking cigarette and reading that the Swami of Akshayananda of, Shankaracharya school speaking with Swami, blah, 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 of South Indian Vaishnava school, and Vishishtadvaita and Vishishtadvaita, and there's a whole article by, some brahmachari who was present there. And people would read some stuff like that. That's called India. So everybody believe. Which level is another story, but think of this newspaper where you can read the most incredible things. So Bhaktivinoda published Sajjan Toshani, Prabhupada published Back to God, and Saraswati Thakur published Harmonies magazine and many other newspapers and articles. So his idea was Brihad Mitanga, big publishing. He wants to publish like, YouTube videos, Instagram. If Saraswati Thakur would be today, he said like, publish everywhere, like spam everybody, like learn about media marketing, do GPT chat, artificial intellect, use any possible mean to speak about Krishna and Mahaprabhu. So at that very time, Saraswati Thakur, when he received some donations and there were like kings who would support what he's doing, he would buy, German, German printing machines, and he was giving Rolls Royce as a car because, people understood importance of his divine personality. He wasn't like exploiting for any material pleasures because he was like life Naishtika brahmachari, never had sex in his life, lived in a very strict sadhu. But for the service of Krishna, he would dress up sometimes in European coat and turban, very nice turban. And sometimes he would dress his Gaudiya Math brahmachari sannyasi like priests in black dress. You can see in pictures. Because he would come himself as a saffron sannyasi, and he had a bunch of people like dressed like students of Catholic church, like university, that would be dressed. So he experimented different dresses. He wasn't just using saffron. He understood for the Indian, saffron's good. For the Westerners, I'll have like a very priest, very like cut, as Govinda Maharaj said, suited, booted. It means like suit and shoes, which was not the sign of a sadhu of that time. If somebody had leather shoes and European style of dress in India, that would be considered like, hey, you're trying to cut Western profile. But when Saraswati Thakur would bring the governor of Bengal and a bunch of Calcutta British intellectuals, he would treat them like a gentleman. And one British lady said, I have not seen better British gentleman than this sadhu. She said, all other British gentlemen that I met was not as gentleman as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. So you can imagine, perfect English, very clean cut, because at a certain part of his life, he was a mentor of aristocratic family. He was hired as a mentor, and he would teach the children, educate the children. And then he understood that's not what he wants to do, but he was very well paid. And he teach children everything: philosophy, behavior, art, music, everything. And second part of his life, he was hired as one king, I think maybe Bharatpur or some place. That king want him as a pandit and researcher to study his ancestors' line and write something about his dynasty and family. Every king wants to, like, I really want to disclose my grandfathers and grandmothers, my dynasty. So Saraswati Thakur were very well versed in history, literature, and he did some research work for that king. Also, one of the reasons why, because king had a huge spiritual library. And king said, yes, I have all this spiritual library. Nobody reads all these books, but all these shastras, you can read it. But you know what? I mean, I'm willing to pay you very well if you can write something about my family, like, use all our books to glorify my ancestors. So Saraswati Thakur did that, but then he later said, I can't really continue doing that. I've done something for you. Then the king said, I'm so pleased with what you've done and with yourself. I'm willing to give you life pension from the kingdom. But Saraswati Thakur said, okay, I really want to preach. And certain time he was receiving money from the king, and then he said, I can't just do it. So he cut off completely. He said, I don't want to be a dependent king. I want to be dependent on Krishna. That was his mood. So one time, one of the brahmachari by the name of Saraswati Thakur came to preach in some state. And the kings at that time, not every one of them were like very spiritually inclined. Of course, externally, they all act like, oh, we are very religious people. But the queen knew her husband does not really appreciate Vaishnavas. Then she arranged, I think, was it Goswami or Jadavar Maharaj, someone. She arranged some program where he came and speak. And the real reason when all the sannyasis coming to the kings, of course, to collect money from them, donations, and it's very well understood by Indian culture. But her husband, the king, wasn't so inclined to give money to Gaudiya Vaishnava temple. But the queen did. So she did a very interesting trick. She said, well, Swamiji, I'm very impressed to announce a newspaper, you visit, and your lecture. And I think for your better well-being, I'm sending you the pillow. So she sent with her driver a pillow. And Goswami Maharaj, when he opened the pillow, it was full of cash. So she couldn't just give money. So she sent the pillow after the lecture. So then he understood, yes, I did successful preaching, and the queen very satisfied with what I've done, but she cannot go against her husband. She cannot force her husband. So she took some of her own personal savings and gave to Krishna temple. And he was very satisfied by that. So as you see, the Gaudiya Math preachers, they had to deal with intelligentsia, the high-level people of its time. And Saraswati Thakur were hoping to convert them into devotees. And some of them had very deep appreciation of Bhagavad Gita and philosophy. So one person asked one of the Saraswati Thakur disciples, "Can you make me a Brahmana?" He said, "Of course. But for that, you have to give up your, illicit sexual activities and your meat and your cognac, your cigars, take a clean cut shave, start taking baths 3 times a day, chant Gayatri, recite the Vedas, and yes, and that will be qualification that you will receive, Brahminical initiation." And that man, taking a cigar, said, "I like your philosophy, but I don't think I can follow." So there was another person whose name was Radhakrishna Swami, who actually, during the World War I, was a pilot. He was a British pilot, and he fought with Germans. And his, remember that time was like very slow flying aircraft with 1 or 2 people. In other words, he crashed. And while he crashed, it wasn't like immediate crash, but he got injured and crashed. He thought, if I survive in this crash, I will dedicate my life to God. So he discovered himself in French territory, and French took him to hospital, and he survived crash and become alive. And after hospital, he was dismissed from army duty, and he went to one very famous priest and said, "I really want to dedicate my life to God, but I promise that I have to see God with my own eyes. Can you show me God with your own eyes?" And the priest said, "Actually, I understand what you want. You want some deeper divine perception. I don't think I can do it, but in India, there are yogis. And I've heard, because some missionaries was there, that there's some great ascetic yogis and spiritual persons who have that divine perception." So that man went, and finally he met some Gaudiya Vaishnavas, and he got initiated by some lady. She preached to him, and later he took sannyas and lived in some place like Kashmir or like Kulu, like something like Rerich, where he lived. And there he had a little ashram, and he passed away there in India. So he kind of dedicated his life to spiritual sadhana. Was not so famous, was not like brilliant spiritual person like the followers of our like Guru Maharaj and Gurudev and Prabhupada, but as a foreign person, he tried to dedicate his whole life to Krishna, and in some ways he succeeded. So as you understand, there were many different stories about different people, and it was not even in Soviet time, actually, Ilf and Petrov in one of his famous book, which is actually Zolotoy Telenok, that's the name of the book. They're writing something about Swami and Krishna. Why? Because that time, some kind of vibration about Krishna consciousness came to Russia, actually in Europe, but it was not fully developed. And that time, the Eastern Europe won the Ardor Revolution, surviving World War I, Great Reset. But at that time, there were many intellectuals, and Anna Bizant, they tried to publish Bhagavad Gita, they tried to publish spiritual books, and Blavatsky, and all these people. But it was taken to another directions. People tried to change the world. They never tried to change themselves. And for changing the world, they were willing to kill everybody. And so the court of Russian Revolution and Civil War and World War I and financial reset. And at the same time, it was technical industrial revolution. The whole economic model has been building towards that. So Saraswati Thakur started his Gaudiya Math 1917, a year of Russian Revolution, and end up his pastimes 1934. So you can say that he was preaching almost close to 20 years, not exactly 20 years, I think. almost 16, 17 years. And in this time, 17 years is nothing, like nothing to establish tradition or religion. Vaishnavism was there, but the Gaudiya Sampradaya was practically on zero level, because there were just few Nitya-Siddhas, the real Vaishnavas, and they were like just like a village Vaishnavism. Village Vaishnavism, you go to Bengals, everybody tell you Hare Krishna, but what they understand about Krishna, that's another story. So that intense work that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur done, and he actually brought his disciples back to Navadvip. He's brought his disciples back to Navadvip, and he did Навадвип Дхам Парикрама. And after, when he passed away, he born in Puri, and he passed away in Calcutta, in Bagbazar Gaudiya Math. He passed away from heart disease, stroke. But it is believed that Krishna and Radharani felt so much separation from his beloved Nayana Manjari that heart, and heart is called Hridoy, the rasa, the energy is flowing to the heart. There's also prema, the love, so that his heart of separation broken. And he passed away at very early age, 60 something. Then they took his body, and thousands of people were heading with his body towards rail station. And nearly hundreds of people were bringing his body covered in flowers by train to Навадвип Дхам. And that very moment in Chaitanya Math, they made beautiful samadhi of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And that's where he enters samadhi. And the Srila Guru Maharaj, in one of his lectures, telling he was sitting so calm, so peaceful, like alive, like he orchestrates his own burial, like a great general. And the people who were doing this, they were in mad crying stage. And Guru Maharaj said, and when the sand came over his head, burying samadhi, he said, I just couldn't hold anymore. I found myself in this incessant tears, and I lost consciousness. So this Guru Maharaj's lecture. So Saraswati Thakur, divine body in Antavip and Chaitanya Math, his Samadhi Mandir is there. Every time we're doing Навадвип Дхам Парикрама, we're coming to see his divine Samadhi. And also his temple of Radha Vinod deity, where 4 Vaishnava Sampradayas, 4 Vaishnava Acharyas, Nibaraka, Vishnu Swami, Ramanuja, are established there. And it's a very beautiful spherical round temple where you have in each corner of altar, each Vaishnava altar. So when you circulate this, you understand this, all these Vaishnava Acharyas came to prepare yourself for the higher knowledge of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, nothing higher than that. So this is Saraswati Thakur, a unique temple, and there's one thing survived, maybe 30 seconds. You can see it. It's been probably filmed by British or Germans, most like British. There's like only 30 seconds from archive where he's sticking his finger in the book. And Chaitanya Math. You can go to YouTube and see Saraswati Thakur Chronicles, because when they opened Chaitanya Math, they brought filmmakers, and the filmmakers that time were like that, but archives only survive very small piece of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. I think it's came out of Calcutta Movie Archive, and maybe there's some more, but I would have big doubts that anything would survive in Indian weather, the way Indians would store stuff. But just the fact what had been said about Gandhi, that such people exist, like what would you think if you would had like 30 seconds of Jesus? Like, hello, my friend. That would be amazing. People would like watch this, and they would like expose to each other. So you can go to YouTube and see Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and what he's doing. He's sticking his finger to Chaitanya Charitamrita. You get into that Navadvip Leela, you get into that Mahaprabhu pastime, you'll be taken care of. So that's his only gister. So he's sitting like this, in a divine form, very peaceful, very calm. And when I've heard this beautiful talk by Guru Maharaj, Sri Maharaj, it's an archive, you can, if you like it, you can get it. I felt so much, not hope. I felt like, what am I wasting my life for? What am I doing in this life? Am I just trying to survive like animal another day? What did I actually give to Krishna? Saraswati Thakur said, I've been trying to give to Krishna flower for such a long time. What did I offer? Did I ever offer anything to Krishna? Was that offering, or was something that I want to enjoy for myself? And deep, humility came at that moment to my heart. And then I thought, well, how come normally you're inspired by your own ego and your own motivation? You need ego motivation. You want to be the best. You want to be the cool. You want to be respected. You want to be this and that. But it really never touches your heart. No matter how you motivate yourself, if it's not true, if it's not real, it's not going to touch your heart. So at that moment, my heart was touched. Maybe I almost cried for a second. And then my stone-like heart, told me, come on, Swami, you're so great. Don't worry about it. The evil mind always will give you so many excuses. Why you're doing what you're doing, and why you don't have to surrender to Krishna today, because you can always surrender to Krishna tomorrow. And if tomorrow is not going to come, you always surrender to Krishna after tomorrow. And you're not like liberated soul, you're just a fallen soul. So don't worry, don't try to do something. Anyway, it's an interesting way that mind tries to trick you. So don't trust your own mind, never trust your own mind. It's almost like a gamble, in Russian language, we have a name Schuler. Schuler is somebody who will cheat you. So when you play poker or play cards with your own mind will 100% cheat you. Therefore, don't rely on your own mind. Don't play a game with your own mind. Don't hire your own mind as advocate. He's the great advocate. He will any sinful activity, no matter how worse it is, your mind will justify it. So don't rely on that. And Saraswati Thakur, many times as he preached Krishna consciousness to people, he thought, why are you leaving me? Well, they said, oh, thank you so much, Swami. You're amazing. What you just said about Mahaprabhu is so amazing. Thank you so much. Here's 100 rupees. We'll be back next month. In India, people would donate. But Saraswati Thakur said, don't try to buy out. Don't try to buy out of Krishna consciousness. Buy in Krishna consciousness. Don't give me some money to buy yourself out. Come back to your mundane life that you had little spiritual satisfaction. Buy in. Use your energy to buy in, to become a devotee, to become a true follower. That's very difficult for common people because they like to buy out. Okay, we're considering to give something to devotees and Krishna and temple because it will be good for us. But they're not thinking like, hey, we're willing to give ourselves, our life to Krishna and devotees. So that's the true price. For true things, you have to pay with yourself. That's the only price. So we're so fortunate to speak today about Навадвип Дхам Парикрама. And again, it's my third meeting today. And just this morning, I spoke something about Guru Maharaj, and then we went to Wisdom, our location, and we had some devotees coming to see our dome shows, and one devotee appeared, which I've been waiting for to meet 20 years. And he's a 76 or maybe, 76-year-old person. He's one of the greatest artists of Prabhupada. His name Bharadwaj. He did all the Prabhupada art, all Prabhupada books, all Hare Krishna books is like done by him or direct by him. And he's a very nice, looking like an artist, a gray head man. And I said, well, actually, I've been waiting for you for such a long time. And he said, do you know me? I said, of course, everybody knows you. You are the great Bharadwaj, Prabhupada's leading artist. And he said, how do you know me? I said, from dear Krishna Goswami Maharaj, who's your dear friend. He's dear Krishna, he's dear to you. And he's sending his dandavats to you from Thailand. And he was very overwhelmed by watching what we've done on Dome, and he was like very touched and said, that's what Prabhupada wants. Thank you so much. And, he's an older guy. We talk about spiritual cryptography and art and this and that. And I said, there are, great people, not just like you and me. They're like, and I mentioned Paul from Moscow who's watching. I said, there's like great stage directors and art directors and this and that. I said, there are great people waiting to serve Krishna and Mahaprabhu. So don't think like, oh, it was like those sweet days with Prabhupada when we've done something in the 70s and 80s. No. And he said, I understand. I'm looking for current. I'm looking for the stream. And I said, I guess you guys the current. I said, well, we're not exactly so divine, but we're trying. We're trying to satisfy our gurus. We're trying to satisfy Prabhupada. We're trying our best. And the end of this meeting is hope. Is the hope that Krishna will allow us to do something for his service. That was Saraswati Thakur's idea. It's not that easy to serve Krishna. Krishna has billions of goddesses of Lakshmi and all the Brihaspati, all the great personalities serving him. But if that service opportunity will come to us, and we have to take it very seriously. And maybe we train all our life to do that divine service as Krishna would accept. So how do we get to that point? We get together, we have association, we hear about Krishna, we hear from devotees, we get inspired, we hear the stories, and sometimes there will be very sad story, like story of disappearance of Saraswati Thakur. But as the Irish folk songs say, the ballads, in our sad songs, they're the most sweetness coming. So you get the most feeling from the sad song, not from the funny song. We're not getting a bunch of clowns trying to entertain us and show us, little jokes. The sad, deep appreciation of sages and actually complete self-resistance. This is what gets you before you go to positive point, you have to be yourself in negative point. That's what makes the connection positive, negative. This is Guru Maharaj lost. So he had not even his dog, the dog. He met dog. He doesn't know the dog name. Dog had no name. So if dog can be dragged into Mahaprabhu by the grace of devotee, what to speak of us? So we have also friends. Actually, in America, some people write books like Dogs Never Lie. That's a good point, because dog had no criticisms. Dog has no Vaishnava aparat. The dog had no doubts. Dog just like Vaishnavas and follow Vaishnavas to Mahaprabhu. So my prayer today is we'll be like those innocent dogs. We learn how to follow with our full heart, and we're not try to examine things with our chicken-like mind, which is always try to trick us and be our best friend and our worst enemy. My Dandavat Pranam, I'm very happy to see Hrishikesh Maharaj, Vicharaman Prabhu, Thai devotees, Moscow devotees, Vrindavan devotees, all other devotees. And this is very auspicious time for us to share our hearts together and appreciate Mahaprabhu, his pastimes, appreciate all the devotees, appreciate the listeners, appreciate the talkers, appreciate Holy Dham, because it's been giving in the worst time, the best medicine in the worst time. So Mahaprabhu descended in Kali Yuga, which is totally helpless, but Mahaprabhu came with hope. So my Dandavat Pranam to your lotus feet, all the Vaishnavas, and thank you for giving me opportunity to speak. I'm not very perfect, a speaker in English specifically, but I try my best. I haven't spoken English for a long time. I mean, lectures, I do speak in Russian. Most of my lectures in Russian, but, I try my best to, recall all the proper words and to share with you something that comes by grace of Guru, my heart, my Dandavat Pranam, Hare Krishna. I'm leaving this meeting with the prayer to you, please. please remember about great teachers, and remember yourself as a great, recipients of mercy and servant. Never think of yourself, you can say I'm nothing, but if you're nothing, you don't do nothing. Just think I'm the servant. I try to serve. I meant to serve. I will serve. I will get everything through service. Hare Krishna. Jai Guru Maharaj ki jai.
Jai Шрила Бхакти Бимала Махарадж ки jai. Our Dandavat pranams to all the devotees, and we will meet again tomorrow. We suppose it will be Russian lecture. Dandavats to everyone.